Welcome back to episode 49 of Establish the Collection. I'm your host, Cody Main, joined as always by Gary Hartman. Gary, fresh off of a debut appearance somehow of the ETR NBA podcast where you and Gallagher talked NBA collectibles. That was a fantastic show. Gary, how's it going, buddy? Are you ready to talk more cards today?
Yeah, it was fun. Gallagher and I recorded yesterday. I think our team over on the NBA side is really trying to make a commitment to keep the pod going like twice a week still during the offseason. So looking for some fun topics and, what better offseason topic than talking collectibles and cards. So, Mike, we had him on a little over a year ago, probably for NBA card talk. And he is not invested in those streets, but he provides great insights from an analysis standpoint that we can kind of take away. So we had a fun conversation with me kind of, filling him in on the current status of sports cards. We talked mostly about the most recent rookie class with the new releases with Prizm and National Treasures and, Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley guys. So, if you want a real in-depth talk, we spoke for about 45-ish minutes. Go over to the Establish the Run NBA pod and you'll get what you usually hear from Cody and myself as far as, details of the current card market over there. And we had a fun chat.
Yeah, I don't think anyone better to talk to about, actual basketball analysis than Gallagher and yourself, obviously. Also kind of gave like a good one-on-one primer, which you and I haven't done enough lately, I think, and a lot of evergreen stuff that you and Gallagher talked about at the beginning. If you guys are just finding out about Established Collection, go check out that beginning of that podcast where Gary mentioned some notes on just getting your feet wet in the card market with NBA specifics as well. So really good resource there if you guys want to check it out. As far as today's show, we're going to kind of go around the horn here today since, when you got back from the honeymoon, we kind of just dove right into a best ball draft. We kind of hit some news and notes off the front, but I feel like we've got a lot to catch up on and probably too much for one episode. So I think we better dig in, and I think there'll be more for us to talk about next week as well for whatever we missed today. But I think since it's top of mind, since I just listened to the podcast, since you guys just recorded the podcast, why don't we start with the NBA card market? Since we last talked, we've seen Prizm come out. We saw National Treasures just released. In fact, I think National Treasure just came out last week. So this is very topical, very top of mind right now. What are the things that you've got your eye on as far as the basketball card market right now?
So anyway, the two biggest releases of the year, in my opinion, coming in. So it's really interesting to both monitor, I think, box prices, case prices, break prices, as well as just overall individual sales. We don't have to kind of get into depth about what to be attacking as these things come out. We've spoken about that stuff ad nauseum, selling off the base early, perhaps scooping up some of the colored refractors as they hit the streets before they become more rare, is kind of a approach that I like to take. But, certainly been a lot of hype around this class because it's such an awesome class. Cade Cunningham and Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley, and Jalen Green, but obviously also there's Josh Giddey and even some of the guys further down the board that have some excitement, like Moses Moody and Kuminga, and all these guys are super exciting. So really interesting to check out. Glad to see that we finally got product coming out for these guys now, a month or so, 6 weeks after the NBA Finals is over.
Any immediate takeaways just on design, kind of more macro design, appearance, parallel checklist as a whole? Anything that really stood out to you, good or bad?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think let's talk about the National Treasure side, because for Prizm, we kind of knew what this design was going to look like, mostly because through both the NFTs that have been out now for a year, and the football side of things as well. So I think Prizm looks really good this year. I think it's a sleek design, one of my favorites in years. But I think National Treasures is way more interesting to talk about because, first of all, they have a couple new rookie patch autograph parallels. There's actually more true vertical parallels in this year, so you have a better chance of hitting a vertical RPA this year. They have not usually done that. Usually they just had the out of 99s and then the golds and the emeralds out of 10s and out of 5s, things like that. Sometimes out of a jersey number and then, you the first off the line parallels. But this year, because of the 75th anniversary for the NBA, they released an out of 75 for every RPA for major rookies, which is one thing. And then also, the logo men look so sick with the 75th anniversary patch. So I think from an aesthetic standpoint, National Treasures looks maybe as good as ever, which, I think creates some exciting hype for a really fun rookie class. So.
Did we get a sneak peek of those a while ago? I feel like I remember seeing one of the Cade logo man that had the 75th, or maybe it was Jalen Green. It was one of those guys I feel like that had that 75th emblem on the logo man that looked really, really sleek.
Yep. When they first released images for the cards, it was that Cade one that was going around. And now you're seeing almost all the rookie logo men, whether it's the out of 5s for the rookies just without an autograph or the, logo man patch auto, are that 75th diamond looking one. And it is so cool. I mean, it really is so cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When the actual design on the card matches the price of the product, it makes it so much more worth it when you hit one of those. Speaking of prices, I didn't pull up any National Treasures prices. I know you've got some of that in front of you. It looks like Prizm hobby boxes were going for right around $950. Last I had looked, off of peaks right around $1,300, kind of similar dip for first off the line boxes that have settled in around $1,700 that are off peaks north of $2,000. Any takes on pricing right now?
Yeah, so I'm seeing the same $950, $960 price on a website called TCG Stadium. If you Google, that's a great price. We're recording this at Tuesday at 3. I mean, if you have the bankroll, I think that's a price that you're going to want to go snag. I think these will settle in around $1,200, $1,300, which is kind of what they're at on Blowout and Steel City, which is about $600 less right now than the 2020 LaMelo class is going for. Obviously, way more of that has been ripped. There's less overall circulation for those, but I'm more bullish on this class as a whole as I was that one. I mean, obviously the top end with LaMelo and Edwards is really, really strong, but I am more bullish on this whole class. So, the fact that right now it's a good $500-$600 under, those boxes, I think is an okay price. And, a lot of that's going to be indicative of the market being down as a whole, but this is one of the few products, that I'm always comfortable sitting on as an investment, a wax product. And right now specifically, if you're able to scoop up a handful of these for under $1,000 and that's something that you can afford to do, I think that's a really safe place to put your money right now. I'm guessing in a year, you'll be able to flip these for closer to what that 2020 box is right now, $1,700. So I mean, Prizm's in a good, decent place price-wise right now. I mean, it's all relative, right? It's all this stuff's so expensive.
Right. I feel like that's one thing that you're batting 1,000 on, though. It was the same situation with the F1 boxes when you were scooping those up early. You got me involved in going and picking up boxes, that some of which that I flipped as well. So, if Gary mentions a price is a little undervalued in terms of sealed wax, it might be a decent time to scoop. There's another sealed wax product that we'll get to here at the end of the show that I think is very undervalued right now as well. Any National Treasures takes as you're getting data pulled up there?
Yeah, NT is wild. I mean, those are going for around $5,000 a box right now. So you're looking at $20,000 a case, a little less than what we've seen in recent years. Again, I think just in general, I think the release prices have to come down a little bit to speak to the status of the economy. So, for a really fun rookie class, that's another interesting place to be. Still, for most people, though, you're looking at breaks as options for that. Just some interesting sales data in general there. I mean, Scotty Barnes looks to be a redemption for his RPAs in National Treasures. But I mean, for just the redemption yesterday, one sold for $15,000. Yep, for his true out of 99, just his true vertical RPA. Yeah. His gold redemption, so out of 10, sold for $30,000. So the hype is there. I'm seeing the Cade Cunninghams out of 99 go for anywhere between 15 and 20,000. Live. Evan Mobley is going for around 10 to 15 live. So I know his first off the line out of 8 went for $18,000. So Scotty Barnes clearly, we talked a little bit about this on the pod with Mike, but Scotty Barnes, who did take that Rookie of the Year award from Evan Mobley, mixed with the fact that I think, we've always talked about the big men problem in the hobby. It looks like Barnes is maybe the second most hyped guy right now in this whole class after Cade. So it's something to keep in mind. Jalen Green also, really high-end stuff. People are paying top dollar for some of his stuff, even his just horizontal material jersey autographs out of Antique, still going for like $3,000. That's not even the true one. So, the prices are high on the top guys, and I think it would continue to be that way.
Plenty more rookie talk from this class on the ETR NBA pod that you just recorded with Gallagher. But real quick, because I don't feel like I put you on the spot and use your analysis on this stuff nearly as much as I should for myself and for our listeners. We've talked Cade, we've talked Mobley, we've talked Scotty Barnes, Jalen Green, even Josh Giddey, Jalen Suggs, plenty. Any like super under the radar, off the radar, underrated type of names that you could see taking a leap in a few years that like, hey, snap by it now and hold on to it. And when this guy breaks out in his sophomore, junior season, this is the time to sell. Any of those super under the radar names?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there definitely can be. For me, as you go down the line there, like Trey Mann on the Thunder, I think is interesting. We saw him kind of have, real success, put up real numbers once they benched everyone last year. But I think, Kim kind of being the two guard on that team, possibly the two guard, of the future, playing in between Giddey and SGA there. I've seen him have some big sales already, but I think that's the kind of guy that has the upside from a flash potential to maybe reach another tier. I like the guys that Mike and I were talking about on the pod, the Moses Moody, Quentin Grimes tier, I think is interesting depending on what those kind of prices are sitting at. It's always tough when you're looking at kind of more role players, but I think with wings these days, you just never know when somebody might be able to kind of snap into a, pure just scorer type for any given team. Moody is a guy that I think will be firmly in the rotation for Golden State next year if they make another run. So, I mean, that's somebody that's kind of end of the round. And then, you got Cam Thomas on the Nets, another really electric scorer. Who the hell knows what's going to happen with that Nets team. So, it's someone that might be able to be thrust up into a large role pretty quickly. I mean, just dominated Summer League again. He's somebody that kind of scored 30 points with his eyes closed. And then one other name I'll give you, I always hesitate a little bit about big men, but, we love Alperen Şengün over here.
Yep.
Love the Goon, and that Rockets team is exciting for this upcoming year. I'm not saying he's ever going to be Jokic, but he is a kind of guy that has a incredible vision on the court, really good passing. So maybe someone that can, obviously his ceiling won't be the same as, a wing or a guard, but I think can definitely have a nice little card market for a big at some point down the line.
Lots of good names to keep our eyes out for. I like the Cam Thomas shout. Who knows what is going to go on with that Nets team over the course of the next few months, really. And I think a perfect transition to kind of what we want to get into and what we missed over the last couple of weeks while you were away, the NBA offseason rumor mill. I mean, we got some good news, nuggets, I guess, if you will, over the last couple of days here. We got a trade offer that emerged for KD from Boston that would have included Jaylen Brown. That was reportedly denied. Seems like the Raptors and Heat are still seemingly engaged. I think this is kind of the biggest NBA offseason storyline still, biggest shoe to drop. Maybe not the biggest for the hobby, because we kind of know what it is with KD, unless some of these big younger names get moved around that could shake things up for their markets. But anything to add on what's going on with Kevin Durant, the Nets, and maybe Boston getting involved?
Yeah, the Boston stuff yesterday was really interesting. Obviously, if that were to come to fruition, it'd be interesting both from Jaylen Brown and Kevin Durant's side. But no, I mean, I just think Durant in general, it's a good time to buy if you can do it. I mean, this stuff has been going down for a while. I think people are a little fed up, but at the end of the day, he's still a top 12 to 15 player of all time. And, it's when, the second that trade request came in, mixed with the fact that the market was down, I think really kind of started sending his stuff going the way you wouldn't want to see it go. His Topps Chrome, down 51% over the last 6 months, just the PSA 10. That card's $1,300 right now. That's kind of crazy. I feel like a year ago, it was probably closer to $6,000. Yeah, it was, I guess. About September 21, it was $5,500. So
we're down to $1,300. $1,300,
and it's a pop. It's only a pop of slightly over 1,000. So it's not like this is like a super highly circulated card. 63% decrease over the last year. Another 13% just over the last 2 weeks. So I think people are really fed up with KD. Aren't really interested in He's such an interesting legacy from a top 15 player of all time. If in fact he does go to another team this year, we've never seen something like this. I mean, LeBron's gone around, but he's always been pathed out very,
much more methodical with LeBron than with KD.
It's just he's never been able to kind of stamp down, garner the love of the people since OKC. And, he rubs people the wrong way on social media. All that said, like if you're looking at this for long-term investment, I think it'll be totally fine once he's retired. I just don't know. And I don't know how much more room this has to fall. I think if he went to Boston, for example, I think that it would immediately take a quick little jump. Just the amount in which Boston would then be the title favorite would be really high. So, I think, and the bigger market, him going to one of the all-time great franchises, it's just like, I think you would see a little bump. If he goes to Phoenix, I don't necessarily know if it would, maybe a little bit just from the, we've talked about this before too, trades just driving market increase in general. So maybe a little bit, but I think Boston would be the biggest outcome for his immediate card increases, where if he just goes back to Brooklyn, I think until he gets back on the floor and starts playing an MVP level that we saw last year, you'll have time to kind of jump into this market for a little bit here. So that's pretty wild.
Using Jaylen Brown as kind of a proxy, is there any name that could be involved in this trade that could like drastically see their stock rise based off of the trade? Like, does Jaylen Brown's card market go nuts if he gets traded to the Nets for KD?
Yeah, I don't know. I almost think I can make an argument one way or the other, right? You can make an argument he's leaving the title contender, leaving, the more popular franchise. And for that reason, it would go down. And then you can make the argument, okay, he's going to New York City. He'll be able to actually be the number one option. Let's see what happens with Kyrie. But either way, I think he'd be the number one option. He's going to just be entering his prime out of Jason Tatum's shadow. So you can make all those arguments that he would, go up. So I think actually what would end up happening is he'd stay pretty stagnant, is my guess. I think it would kind of fall right in the middle. All these names throughout these, different trade rumors that I could see, just to kind of put a bow on NBA here, that I could kind of see, taking increases would be, Durant if he goes to Boston. I think Donovan Mitchell, if he goes to New York, would see an increase for sure. And then, I think that the guys that could be impacted in some of these peripheral trades, could certainly, see their markets move one way or the other. Miles Turner to the Lakers, I think would be helpful for someone like him. Obviously his entry point is low. I think that the young guys going back from the Knicks, I think it would hurt them a little bit. They go play in basically no man's land in Utah for a little bit here. I don't think despite these being some of the biggest trades that we might see in NBA history, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be impacted too much on anyone around the thing. I think Durant's the biggest possibility of, major movement depending on where he goes.
And Donovan Mitchell was a guy that we've talked about quite a bit as somebody who had been undervalued, someone that we viewed as undervalued in that, I think if you're trying at this point, if you think you're being sneaky with purchasing up Donovan Mitchell right now, I think you may have missed that window. His stuff is already up pretty big over the last 30 days, up 55%. His silver PSA 10 that has a pop count of just $569 up to $550.
Happy to see that.
I think if you see that trade get announced, which I mean, the rumors are everywhere. You probably know better than I do as a Knicks guy. I think once you see that trade get announced, it'll go up a little bit again. But like it's buy the rumor, sell the news type situation at this point, and it's already up 55%. It's probably a little bit too late if you're wanting to catch that wave.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it back up because if you recall, I bought that card around $640, so I'm down obviously, but now only like $90-ish, so it's not as bad as it was. I couldn't have seen the market or the whole economy going the way it was going when I did buy that card, which was back in I believe middle of February. I have it listed here on Card Ladder. So so I mean obviously. But, I identified it as such. Obviously, we'll see what happens where he goes. I think no matter what, he's played his last game with Utah. I think they make a move no matter what before opening night, whether it's the Knicks or otherwise. So, yeah, I mean, the Jazz are going to be in no man's land here for a while. And, it's such a small market to begin with. It's hard for me to get excited about any of the pieces that would maybe go back to Utah. In the time being. But yeah, I'd be excited about Mitchell. And I think we should actually just take this chance to talk quickly about the Wolves and the Gobert trade that they made, which we never really spoke about on the pod. Obviously, the price was ridiculous. And I have zero interest in Rudy Gobert cards in general. He's not a popular player, and he's a true old school center. So not someone that you're interested in, but I do think it's interesting for Edwards and Towns, who from a regular season standpoint will be greatly benefited, especially Towns, who has had some of his best time playing alongside rim protecting bigs. If he's going to really just be able to focus on not necessarily protecting the rim and, just dominating on the offensive side, where Edwards also would really benefit from having both kind of a lob threat. Not that Gobert's any kind of great offensive player, but having a lob threat and having that defensive stalwart as well. I think both those guys and the Wolves in general next year are going to be really, really high-end regular season teams. So just something to keep in mind if you're investors in those two players.
All right. Anything else we need to hit on NBA before we move on to sport number 2 of our Around the Horn today?
Yeah, I don't think so. Again, you can get a lot more in-depth talk on the pod with Mike and I on the Established Run NBA pod. But, in general, I just think that we'll be ready to talk about this stuff throughout the offseason. Obviously, NBA isn't going anywhere. And again, the whole market's down. Take a look at card ladder indexes. Take a look at some guys like Kevin Durant, some all-time greats that you might be able to scoop up right now. I have no problem buying dips right now. I'm not going to pinpoint exactly where the bottom is here. There is a chance we're going into a legitimate recession as a nation. So keep that in mind as well. We're not going to talk true economics on this pod, but you're going to have some real chances during the offseason for some buying. So have no issues if that's the route you want to take.
Yeah, could not have said so better myself. And now, especially as football starts to heat up too, we're in training camp season, best shape of his life season right now. And football is going to get underway here shortly with the preseason kicking off in one short week. So yeah, it's the focus is certainly going to shift away from the NBA and focus in on NFL as we round into form here. But it's almost disrespectful, I think, at this point, how little we've talked about baseball, macro, micro, Yankees, your AL only fantasy baseball team. Like, we haven't talked any baseball, I feel like, on this podcast recently. And that's a bit disrespectful for America's pastime, a bit disrespectful for your Yankees, which I know you're excited to talk about, and one Aaron Judge. Take it wherever you want to go, because you're the baseball expert here. If you want to start more macro with kind of where the market is, or if there's something, a storyline as we head into the second half of the season that you want to hit on, I'll let you kind of steer the ship here for us.
Yeah, I am really excited about the Yankees, and I've been, I always am like this, low key every summer, especially. I watch pretty much every inning of every game for the Yankees. I've always been that way, but this season's been really exciting. I'm actually going. Subway Series starts tonight. Yankees Mets in Queens. I'm going to the game tonight in enemy territory in Citi Field, and it's been a very long time since both the Mets and the Yankees have been in first place and two of the top 5 teams in the league. So really going to be a great electric environment for the next 3 days in Queens. So really pumped for this, this series now tonight. But yeah, Yankees in general, it's a really interesting time, not only because of how good they've been this season and Aaron Judge's, historic start to the season. He's got a real chance at 60 home runs. The guy's got 37 home runs at the end of July. It's kind of crazy. But also Derek Jeter's, Last Dance type documentary is in the midst of airing right now. The Captain on ESPN is going to be a 5 or 6 part series. Pretty fun if you're a Yankee fan. I've really enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but it's clearly impacted his market as well. So really just interesting time for the Yanks overall. But,
yeah, the Derek Jeter stuff, you brought this up in Slack, and I was shocked to learn some of the prices. I know a good friend of the show, Steve Popo on at Popo on Twitter, had purchased one of those SP Derek Jeter 1993 SP in BGS 9.5. And I think he purchased around 15K and had really good subgrades on it as well. And I know that thing dipped massive. It was down to 8,300 first part of July. We just saw a recent sale of that card, last sold for 21.6. Yeah. If I'm looking at Card Ladder correctly. So it's clear that, and this is the same thing that happened with Michael Jordan, which, The Last Dance, which really kicked off kind of this big card boom that got us all involved back in the hobby. But it's amazing to see these type of docuseries prop up these retired athletes, these all-time greats, and no different for Derek Jeter.
Yeah, exactly. And I also wouldn't be surprised, we didn't talk about this in Slack, but the same way we saw Scottie Pippen's market increase, we saw Steve Kerr cards start to sell a little bit. They're kind of presenting it in a similar way with the 96, 98, 99, 2000 teams, where you're getting to know, Bernie Williams and Mariano Rivera and Andy Pettitte. And obviously those other guys, Tino, Bernie, and Pettit, those aren't guys that are necessarily going to have markets, but someone that is an all-time great is Mariano Rivera. Would not be surprised to see his stuff increase over the next month as this documentary continues to air as well. So just something to keep in mind too. But yeah, I mean, the Jeter stuff, that SP card is so cool, man. It's a grail card for me. I've had opportunities to buy it in lower grades, and maybe I will just for a PC thing one day down the line, but I've always wanted it either in a 9.5 or a 10. And, to see it kind of jump like this is really, really crazy. And, you're going to see it with some of the Topps, rookie cards as well. Obviously, he's like right after the major junk wax era with Griffey. So a lot of those things are, pretty highly circulated, but that's what's so great about that SP foil card. It's a prospect card. It is, considered basically like his version of a Bowman, and it's low pop pretty much on all the high end stuff because it's a really hard grade. It's a legitimate like foil type material on the front. So really, really hard grade in that 93 SP. His 93 Topps 92 card in general, which is kind of his draft pick card, looks like it's pretty stagnant. It's actually down a tiny bit over the past 2 weeks because I think that's just a lot of people throwing it up on eBay as, trying to capitalize on it. It's down like 5%, but that's a pop of 3,000 compared to the pops of that SP foil. So yeah, I think the really high-end Jeter stuff you're going to see increase. And I have a couple one-on-one Jeter autos from like Topps archives and things like that I've thought about making some moves on. I mean, I never thought I would sell Derek Jeter in general. I feel like those are kind of cards I would just give to my future son one day, hopefully. But man, I have two of them. I think maybe making the, trying to capitalize on the hype right now makes some sense.
That's such an interesting decision to have to make when it is a PC. It's a player that obviously you grew up on, I would imagine. And
oh yeah.
What does the delta have to be in price change for you to be like, oh, okay, now it's probably time to put it up on eBay?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it's one of those things that maybe I'd be like, put it up really, really high, buy it now, and just let offers come in. And if I'm blown away by something, or even just kind of market it on my Instagram and say like, hey, listening to offers. I don't know exactly what the numbers, especially on like 101 type of cards like that, on card autograph 101s. It's not the highest end card because it's like Topps archive, but it's still a pretty damn cool card. So I don't know. I'd have to really just kind of let the offers come in, and I probably still would be very hesitant to make the move. But yeah.
All right. We'll transition here from an all-time great to some of these young guys that are really kind of stealing the current spotlight as we head into the second half of the season. And speaking of highly circulated cards, Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, trying to do all he can with his Mariners to snap this 21-year playoff drought. His cards have been a big time. Obviously, some of that coming off the heels of the home run derby stuff, but 69, a very nice 69% on just his Prospects Chrome base card in a PSA 10 over the last 30 days. So we're seeing some pretty decent movement in the MLB market for some of these young bucks. Any takes on J-Rod or any of these other young guys that are really making it move in the market?
Yeah, it's all of J-Rod's Bowman stuff. His base Chrome auto also up 25% over the last month. That's a $2,300 PSA 10 card. I mean, for the Chrome, remember, we don't know how many of those are in circulation. That's not even the
right.
The refractors are out of $499. Like, I get that they have these dudes sign a ton of on-card autos, and there's a lot of value in the on-card first Bowman, but for a $2,500 card, that's high for this kind of, but we spoke about him a couple weeks ago after the home run derby. Like, I'm really encouraged about who he is. So if I'm his stuff, I have no problem taking the profits off the table, but he's one of the few guys that, I would also be comfortable holding, and feeling comfortable about what his career arc is looking like. Similar to, a guy like Juan Soto, who's, in the midst of all the big news right now, only 23 years old, have no problem capitalizing on the hype around the trades, but also have no problem holding, super, super fun, exciting time for baseball players, both the really young guys like the Rodriguez Soto types. Bobby Witt's really starting to come on as well, although his market hasn't kind of lived up to what that preseason hype was going to be. But also, even the middle-aged superstars like Aaron Judge is closer to 30. Mike Trout is obviously having a great season once again. Ohtani is just still incredibly stellar. So really encouraging to see that the baseball market in season, and this is a really encouraging sign, has been either up or basically neutral. Every other market has not been that way, except we talked about vintage when we did kind of our macro pod that has stayed pretty neutral or up as well. But baseball has stayed really strong, and that's a good thing. I mean, we always are questioning baseball's legs from a youth standpoint, from a youth interest standpoint, from just a general, like, what is baseball going to look like in 15 years? Are people going to still care about these cards? And, at least our current landscape would tell you yes, and that's a good thing. So.
Do you think that that's something that's going to carry over to football? Do you think that's something that's unique to the sport being in season, and now kind of baseball is center stage right now? We've got the big news obviously with the Juan Soto trade and all these big young names in the sport, or do you think this is just something unique to baseballers, or are we going to start to see this pick back up when sports are in season?
Yeah, I think with football it also will I think the hype of preseason and everything leading up to the season, like we usually see kind of these increases right before the season, and then in season with the quarterback stuff, I think the guys that are playing really well are gonna see that indicated in their card prices as we usually do. And I think even more so though during maybe a tougher economic standpoint than we were last football season, if a guy like Patrick Mahomes, like what we saw last year in the first 6 weeks, was struggling for his standards, I think again we might see those things dip in season with real in season buying opportunities more than you'll having in the offseason just based off pure panic that these guys are not living up to hype. You'll see it all the time, people overreacting, and especially because of all the media coverage around these superstar quarterbacks and the week in between each game to really overanalyze and microanalyze every single decision that they made. If you're coming off a bad week, the movement's going to be fast, both increases on huge games and decreases on bad games. So we'll talk about that in season. But yeah, I anticipate a lot of reaction to on-field play for football season this year, maybe even more than usual.
Yeah, and I'm glad you noticed that in the MLB market as well, because something that I've been following more closely, the UFC, we're seeing that almost weekly with some of these fighters when we get big time pay-per-views, when we get main events, when we get guys like Paddy Pimblett selling out the O2 Arena and getting a rear naked choke and all this, we're starting to see that it does seem like it's something that's not just unique to baseball, not just unique to football. It seems like it's something that collectors and investors are taking notice of when we see these big time performances. Markets are moving. And to that point, talking about the UFC, I don't think that there's a single sport right now that might be in a better spot than the UFC is right now. And I think, you got to start with Paddy the Baddy. Gets the round 2 submission of Jordan Levitt at last week's UFC Fight Night, does the teabag, which was hilarious. Clip goes viral. Talked about all of that leading up to, the fight and the pre-fight press conferences, and then tops the pre-fight press conference, tops the performance in the octagon with just an amazing, emotional, heartfelt post-fight speech in the octagon. He lost his friend earlier that day or the previous night to suicide. Gives a big note on mental health, and really, really heartfelt message. And you have to remember that, like, when we're talking about investing in these guys as athletes and investing in their cards as asset classes, the biggest thing to remember is that we're trying to, especially with the UFC, we're character building, right? Like we're building up this character that can get other people excited about this character. And I don't think anybody did more for themselves than Paddy did with everything that led up to that fight, the antics beforehand, the performance in the cage, and then also the speech after the fact. It really was like this hero archetype type of thing. And, you see that play out in his card market now. The pop counts on this stuff, obviously we're looking at raw data pretty much for Paddy, but everything is up. Colored refractors from this last year's rookie class, everything is up right now. Paddy wasn't a guy that I was really even heavily investing in because I thought he was kind of overhyped. I thought that eventually in the octagon he was going to underdeliver, and that's something we'll talk about. I think he still has some work to do in the cage, but man, awesome performance for Paddy. Just that in and of itself is going to get the UFC hobby sparked right back up. We'd kind of seen some stagnancy with prices on the 2022 class. Hamzat's cards had kind of fallen a little bit, but I think that performance from Paddy and just the insane amount of awesome cards that we're seeing week in and week out now and pay-per-view events as well. I think that's going to drive up the market a little bit from here on.
Yeah, I want to stay on Paddy for a minute because just absolute superstar. I haven't seen someone kind of just grab the sport by the horn since McGregor, really. From a personality standpoint. And you briefly mentioned it, but I wanted to know if this fight or just anything else you've seen has changed your opinion from last time. Like, do you still think that, like, yes, the superstardom there, the personality is obviously there, but does he have the talent and goods to become an actual champion? I'm curious if your opinion's changed at all there.
The thing that's tough with Paddy is he is not the Hamzat level fighter yet, and maybe he'll get there at some point, which I guess is the big question. but I think the fans are ready to send him in that same hype trajectory where it's like, hey, he's got to fight Gilbert Burns or Colby Covington or Kamaru Usman, or I'm not going to be entertained anymore. That's where we were with Khamzat, right? Like he had to take that step up in competition. I think fans will want to see that from Paddy, but I don't think Paddy's ready for that yet. Jordan Levitt was definitely a step up in competition for him, but Jordan Levitt is not nearly the fighter that people are going to want to see Paddy fight. So here's what I think the UFC will need to do in order to keep this train rolling. They're going to have to be really methodical with it. I think they're going to need to give him a name, but not a fighter, right? Like we'll talk about Khamzat in a second. Khamzat's going to fight Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is a name, but at this point in his career, Nate Diaz is no longer a fighter. No, so I think they're going to have to give somebody that get fans excited, probably an older fighter, probably someone well past their prime, but like casuals will still recognize as a big time fight. So they're going to have to not give him the Gilbert Burns style fight that they had to give to Khamzat, where Khamzat almost lost.
Right.
They're going to have to be much more methodical with it. And maybe a name that is a few years past his prime, but still gets the casual fans excited will be what's next for Paddy. So
I love it.
Who knows? I still have my doubts. I will say the whole thing to say basically with Paddy, if you invested, fantastic. I think this is a great time to unload. I mean, the performance was truly transcendent. I think I said it on Twitter that he's, absolute superstar from pre-fight to post-fight, everything. Nothing could have gone better for Paddy. But there's going to be a time down the road that I think he still gets exposed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Obviously, you know way more about this than me, and I'll excuse your Nate Diaz slander, my best friend Nate Diaz. I'll excuse it now. I'm just messing. I'm excited to watch that fight because it's my best friend versus your best friend, and that's really exciting. Right. So no, it's I think that's what I love so much about the sport is that it's like real life WWE. Like they have to be so methodical about planning out the fights and doing this the right way and building the story and keeping the legacy of and the honestly like the almost mythical nature of Paddy Pimblett at this point going. And it's really exciting. I was really happy to see him dominate that fight and then to see the heart come out in the post speech. I mean, really becoming a full rounded character, in every way. And it was touching what he said as well.
It was. And we saw angry Paddy in the pre-fight press conference. He was very pissed off at Jordan Levitt for dismissing his abilities. We'd kind of just seen the antics from Paddy in the past, but to see him, actually upset, actually ready to go out and beat someone's ass, for lack of a better term. And he went out there and took care of business. And I think the building of the Paddy character is going to be great for his card market. Obviously we're seeing it now. I think if you got in early when we were talking about buying boxes and stuff like that, and you're holding on to some, probably a good time to offload. Again, they'll probably be very methodical with him and treat him with kid gloves and give him another pretty easy fight upcoming. But there's going to be a time he's going to get a test and it might not end up as well for him as it did last week. I got to touch on Khamzat before I let you get to F1 real quick, because Khamzat gets Nate Diaz, man. This is insane. And based off of the odds, bookmakers, sports books think it is equally insane that these two are fighting. I think last I had looked, Khamzat was like minus 1,100, like basically a lock to win. You can give me updated odds if you want to look them up. But we talked about this after the Gilbert Burns fight. It was either going to be title fights for Khamzat or main events. And he gets his main event. It's in a pay-per-view. It's UFC 279 in Las Vegas, September 10th. But it's Nate Diaz, and he's going to roll through Nate Diaz, you would think. And if not, then the hype train is totally derailed. But Nate Diaz is not the fighter that he once was. I think the reason that they had to book this, obviously Nate wants out of his contract. He's on his last fight. And fans will tune in for this, right? Like casual fans who remember Nate Diaz from last year will remember that, hey, like this was a great fighter. He's one of the best of all time in the division. He's Hall of Famer. And he's going to put on a show. And I think he will, put on a show for as long as he can stand in there with Khamzat, but it's just a different beast for him. Yeah. Kamaru Usman was maybe someone that we thought would be next. Leon Edwards, maybe someone that we thought would be next. Colby Covington, but Usman's scheduled to fight Leon Edwards in August. Okay. I don't know the situation with Colby Covington, but those are kind of the guys that are left in the division for Khamzat, until some of these younger guys catch up to him in terms of stature. So Nate Diaz, man, September 10th, Las Vegas. I kind of want to go and watch my boy and apparently your boy. I remember this was about a year ago. Oh yeah, that you showed me the picture of you and Nate. Yeah, Nate together.
Randomly met him at a bar in Chelsea. But yeah, He's up to 1,600 favorite in some places. Khamzat is. So you said Leon and Usman are scheduled to fight. If you think if Khamzat rolls through this one, he would get the winner of that fight. Is that a logical next step for him there, or should we not even speculate that?
Maybe I think there's some logic to say that the only reason they had to book this fight was to keep Khamzat active, and obviously to give Nate his wishes to get his final fight and get out of the UFC. I don't know if Khamzat takes care of business here, if it's directly to the winner of Usman or Edwards. I think they might still want to see him go through Colby. Yeah. Or if Leon loses, they might want to see him go through Leon before they give him to Usman, but we'll see. I guess the way I'm thinking about this from the UFC's perspective is Khamzat going out and beating Nate Diaz as a, minus 1,600 favorite isn't going to do much to make him much more of a title contender than he already is. But it will add to the mystique for sure. More casual fans getting involved and watching him beat up Nate Diaz will be great for the Khamzat hype train.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm excited to keep tabs on this. And obviously, yeah, that's a big weekend. I believe that's week 1 NFL season as well. So man, fun stuff ahead in early September. No doubt about it.
Yeah. We'll see if I make the trip out there. I got to convince the wife to let me go solo because,
good weekend to be in Vegas, man.
Would be a great Vegas weekend. Real quick, just going to rattle off some names because I'm going to give you some time for F1 talk, but it's not just Paddy. It's not just Khamzat. At this point, there's a ton of other rookies from this 2022 Prizm class that continue to perform and outperform expectations. Umar Nurmagomedov, yes, that is Khabib's cousin. We talked about him. He got a win in June. Rafael Fiziev gets a win over Rafael dos Anjos in a main event. Jalen Turner, he's 6'3", 155 is Jalen Turner. And as long as he can stay at this weight class, he's going to be an absolute menace. Got a huge win over Brad Riddell in UFC 276. Shavkat Rakhmonov, who I guess would be the guy if it's not Colby, if it's not Usman, if it's not Leon Edwards. Like, this is probably the next guy to go toe-to-toe with Khamzat. He's an absolute menace in the welterweight division. Got a huge win over Neil Magny in June. I say all that because you talked about NBA sealed wax maybe being a buy right now. I think UFC 2022 Prizm is a buy right now. Sealed wax. It's really, 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 really cheap. And I think there's so many opportunities for these guys to pay off their price tags. You can find boxes if you're sniping auctions almost under $500 right now. I think that's a great price given all the names in this class. And especially you've got kind of the chase still with Paddy for as long as that hype train stays rolling. And remember, this is the first autos for Khamzat and Islam Makhachev, who is going to fight for the lightweight belt against Charles Oliveira soon. So just lots of names and lots of ways to pay off your box purchase, I think, with this 2022 class.
Yeah, and it's still packed with autos of legends like Nate Diaz and, Manny Nunez and all these great former champions that can make you back like half your box price if you hit one of those autos too. So, yeah, I think the checklist is really strong. I think that's a really great call, especially and you had mentioned it when this thing started, that you really like the rookie class in that class from top to bottom. So who knows who might still kind of shoot their way up over the next year or two that we're not even talking about right now. So yeah, I like that call a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of potential future champions in this box. Let me just say that. And if those guys reach full potential, maybe it's Umar Nurmagomedov, who's going to have the Khabib ties for the rest of his life. Obviously, that's going to keep prices up. And then Shavkat, if Shavkat and Khamzat are going toe to toe for like some sort of trilogy for the belt, that's going to be huge for both of their markets, obviously as well. But tons of fun names. Tons of stuff that I'm keeping my eye on. I'm going to try and snipe some auctions. I'm already holding on to a few boxes that I just don't have the gumption to rip through yet. I'm going to hold on to them as long as I can, but want to pick up boxes whenever I can. Yep.
All right. Let's transition then to Formula One, which we have not spoken about in a while. And I am sad to report that Formula One has finally caught the recession bug a little bit here. If you look at the index on Card Ladder in general, the racing index over the last month, down about 7% total. So you're seeing it with no one's immune, even Max Verstappen, who's in first place here, Charles Leclerc, who's in second place on the season here. Verstappen looks like he's well on his way to a second straight championship. Obviously, we're about halfway through the Formula One season. There's still about 10 races or so to go. So there is a long way to go there, and that could change up. But I think, I just think we've reached a little bit of the dog days of the F1 season. I think we don't have the dominance from Mercedes at the top. So Lewis Hamilton, the absolute superstar of the sport, he has been much better over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Mercedes has. Lewis has, I think, podiumed in 3 or 4 straight races. He had a second place finish this past weekend in France. So, definitely, starting to improve a lot. And George Russell has been excellent all season. But, it's not the top dominance from Hamilton. More of these cards are now getting back into circulation, coming back from grading, as more tiers have opened up. So I think you're seeing things like the base and the sapphire for most of these guys, Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, all go down a little bit here. I think there's interesting buys. I think guys like Lando is a buy right now. McLaren is largely disappointed a lot this year, and it's really impacted his prices. If we grab Lando Norris's just PSA 10 Sapphire, for example, let me grab that up right now. I know it's down quite a bit here. So it's actually under $200, that card right now, which is crazy. I'm trying to find the pop. But 98 sales over the last 6 months, down 50% to $195 for his PSA 10 Sapphire rookie card. I mean, those were going for $400 or $500 easy. As much as 2 or 3 months ago. So I think really, as long as McLaren continues to struggle, he's an interesting buy. George Russell also, I think, is similar boat for him. I think he's even a better buy because Mercedes is starting to figure it out. He's been in a ton of podiums all year. They're going to continue to be great. I like his rookie stuff a lot. And again, the stuff that we're seeing kind of fall off a little bit here is mostly the base and the sapphire base. Even the variations, the ones of them sitting down in the 2020 Chrome, have stayed strong. And then, of course, a lot of the colored refractor stuff has not fallen much at all. So, again, the same theory we've always said just has now hit F1 a little bit as well. So not too surprising, but a lot of places to buy here. Russell's got a pop of 245 on his sapphire based PSA 10. That card's still $400. So it's Lando that's really kind of fallen down, but still down 35% on Russell, in his rookie card. But if you get his variation, it's still almost a $650 card. So, still plenty of floor for a lot of these guys, but you are seeing, a lot of these cards be in the red as well.
I've been curious to ask you on the 2021 versus 2020. Is there a big delta, do you feel like, in circulation on these cards? Or all of the colored refractors are numbered, right, for this product? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in the checklist is the same? The parallel checklist is the same? It's
similar. They did release more overall parallels in 2021 as it got more popular. In Sapphire, they released an out of 99 like silver. It's like a gray looking parallel. Or it's out of 100, I think, on the nose. And so, yeah, they added another color in there. So it's not totally, but so there's a couple more parallels. But yeah, 2021 in general, definitely not the exact, same type of hype or legs that 2020 had. Again, not surprising. We look at that as kind of one of those pinnacle boxes, the 2012 type Prizm boxes. Also, the rookie class in 2021, not nearly as elite as having George Russell, Lando Norris, and Alex Albon all in one in 2020. So, yeah, definitely not. And we speculated this when 2021 came out. We were excited about it, but was not excited about the upside compared to 2020. And, I think if you have F1, it's still a fine place to be sitting on. You're not losing crazy money. And I think there's buys on some of the major dips on guys like Lando Norris right now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway here. That circulating counts on these seem like they're pretty well kept in check. And that product, just like was the case with the 2021 UFC being the first from Prizm, this one being the first from Topps, being the first of some of these guys like Lewis and Max Verstappen and some of the rookies that they had in that class, similar with Hamzat and being the first cards for him as well. You see these things hold on to their value a little bit longer than maybe even they should. So it sounds like if you're keeping your eye on the F1 market, it sounds like it's best to look at last year's class as opposed to the one with Mick Schumacher and Yuki Tsunoda and those guys, right? Yeah,
definitely. And it's not to say that there isn't exciting 2021 product. Obviously, the high-end mix stuff is going to be good. Any kind of autographs of Max and Lewis, either in Dynasty or Topps, are still going to be strong. And if you get really low parallels, even of second years, Russells and things like that, it's a great card to have. Don't get me wrong, but nothing's going to reach these 2020s. I mean, a lot of these pops, even in the PSA numbers, are under a 200 for like across the board for like whatever you're looking at. You know, and it's like Max Verstappen's base Sapphire PSA 10 is still a $650 card. It's not like it's a, you know, fallen to a $200, $100 card. And that's with it being down 27% over the last 6 months, and, you know, 11% or so over the last month. So, you know, I think, and so he's another guy, though, if he continues to cruise and Red Bull does go on to, you know, bring a championship home for Verstappen, I think once this race picks up towards the end, let's hope that it's a little bit close between Ferrari and Red Bull, and maybe Mercedes continues to get back in the ring. I think, you know, when we get down to the last 5 or 6 races or so, I think there'll be a little bit more excitement around there. But I think we've reached a little bit of a lull in the season, a little bit of kind of a Max Verstappen starting to run away with the season a little bit here. And I think people are kind of just, Formula One's happening. Nothing too exciting going on at the moment.
I will say, as a very, very, very casual fan, anecdotally, it kind of feels that way too. Just following along on Twitter for all of our DFS friends that are playing F1 DFS as well. It seems like it's kind of the hype has kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, we certainly don't have the Lewis Max epic all-time great season race that we had last year. I'm not counting out Ferrari and Charles Leclerc altogether though yet. You know, they seem to shoot themselves in the foot so much. And I also think Mercedes is really figuring out they're right up there with pace now. I think Russell and Hamilton will continue to be a great pairing who are coming in top 5s throughout the season. So, you know, I think there's stuff to watch here, but I don't know if we're going to have an epic conclusion to this season as we did last year. So I think that impacts the upside here.
I'm pretty proud of the two of us for getting through every topic we wanted to touch on today, getting the people caught up on everything that's happened in the sports world that has impacted the hobby over the last couple of weeks since we've been away, since we came back and just did best ball and kind of ignored a large portion of the card market, if you will, while we were focusing on drafting a $1 million team or $2 million team,
yes, sir.
If you will. But anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here today?
Yeah, national. So National Card Convention starts tomorrow in Atlantic City. Let me know if anyone's going to be there that listens to the show. Please let me know. I think I'm unfortunately not going down for the full week. It's a long convention. It goes from Wednesday to Sunday. Tomorrow's technically the sneak peek, but you know, it's 460,000 square feet of tables in the Atlantic City Convention Center. It's going to be absolutely massive, as it is every year. It's right in my backyard. I'm going to be driving down. I think I'm going to drive down tomorrow for the day, and I think I'm going to drive down on Friday. And if I get enough business done in those 2 days, I don't know if I'll be going back, but there's a chance I go back Sunday as well. So I might be there every other day for the convention here. You know, not a quick drive from New York City, but also not too far either. So, you know, really excited to maybe meet some of you down there. Please let me know again if you're going to be there. I'm going to get some business done, hopefully make some sales. I'll report back on what everything was like over there. Maybe I'll post some stuff on the ETC Twitter, Instagram page if anything's really exciting or unique going on over there, but certainly should have a lot to report back. And I just will say, we often see this with the National. It impacts card data a lot. I mean, a perfect example is last year. Remember that purple Lewis Hamilton that I had? You know, I was getting offers around 12, 11, 12, 13,000 before the National. And I think there was a couple big sales right between 15 and 20 of that exact card at the National. And the second people get back from the National, I get offers for that 18,000 or whatever I had sold it for on the nose, ready, you know. And so you see high-end markets specifically reestablish themselves amongst certain cards when there's the right buyer around there. So, you know, we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see what the hype is around the National. Last year, I think it was Formula One for sure. I'm curious to see if it's going to be baseball, as baseball is really exciting right now. Will it be Formula One? You know, will it just be kind of in general vintage? Because vintage is the one thing that stayed you know, really stagnant over this economic downturn. So I think it'll be very interesting to see the trends. I'll report back on all of that next week.
You didn't get to go last year, is that right?
No, I did not get to go. You know, they move around. Last year was in Chicago, but I had some conflicts. Obviously, this is something I would fly out for, but given that it's in New Jersey this year, it's very helpful for me. Really excited to check it out.
And you're going to be there like full blown business 9 to 5, Gary, right? You're not there to joke around and have fun. You're there to like get shit done, right?
Yeah. Obviously I don't have a table or anything like that.
Yeah.
Something I thought about doing in the past and maybe in the future I will, but because I knew I wasn't going to be able to go for, we're babysitting my nephew on Saturday. On Friday, we have plans with Thursday. Sorry. We have plans with my wife's family. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to go and stay down there for the full 5 days. So it wasn't worth me going through the hassle of trying to set up an actual display, but I am going to go around with one of my like card suitcases and try to get some business on, make some sales, possibly some purchases, but I'm mostly in selling mode, as I was telling Cody off air, trying to steam up bankroll for football season here. So mostly in selling mode. And yeah, I'm trying to get some business done, negotiating with some people already that are going to be there over Instagram for certain cards. And yeah, I mean, certainly hit me up if you are going to be going. If you're interested in doing any business, I will be down there.
All right, we'll get out of here on this. Any, I hate to put you on the spot, but like any quick macro or micro tips for people that are heading to the National, if you're buying or selling, any tips that they need to know before they go to maximize their expected value?
Yeah, if you come across a table that someone's just being an asshole, go to the next one. There's not enough. There's too many good people in this hobby to deal with the assholes. So if you come across one of those people that don't give me comps, like I don't want to hear about the comp price. This is my price. Like, F you, move along. Like, we have comps for all these types of things. There's no reason to deal with a-holes. Don't lose your leverage because you get intimidated or anything like that. There's a lot of negotiations going on. It's okay to hold your ground, but I think just be kind, treat each other kindly, and I think there'll be a lot of good relationships, networking, and business that gets done. It could be overwhelming, especially if it's your first time going to one of these types of things. So I would just say, take a deep breath, walk around, get your bearings, and don't be bullied into doing anything you don't want to do. So, yeah.
Great way to leave the show. That was fantastic. Don't deal with a-holes. I love it. Good advice in all walks of life, but especially at card conventions. Gary, ton of fun this week. Have fun at the National. Can't wait to hear you report back next week. We will be back with all of Gary's takeaways from the National and everything else going on in the hobby next week. So catch us at Establish the Collection. Check us out on YouTube as well if you have not done so yet already, but we'll get out of here on that. For Gary, I'm Cody. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care, everybody.